Hello. I'm still setting up here, so just bear with me. It'll be a little while before we get started. Hi, Grania.
Hey, how are you?
Better than you. I'm sorry to hear that you're not feeling too well.
Now, this is just going on and on. It really
Wow.
sucks, is all I can, but pardon the expression. Yeah. Hi, Kathy.
She's not quite in yet.
No,
Let's see. Where do I turn this thing on?
okay.
Oh,
What was that?
oh, just trying some lighting out here.
Hey, Kathy.
Hi, everybody. How you doing, Granny?
Well, it just goes on and on. I actually felt better a couple of days ago, and now it's kind of getting worse again. So who the heck knows? But I don't have a fever, so
That's
that's good. Yeah, well,
Tom, you got my memo in regard to next month?
I did. I'll make an announcement, or you can make the announcement. Either way is fine.
Oh, you can make an announcement. I'm not really, but I'm glad.
Yeah, so that'll be good. That'll be interesting. It's a little different than a usual,
I like that. Yeah.
the usual.
And I'll talk to you, Kathy. I mean, you can call anytime. That's gonna
Right,
be.
okay, yeah, but I
Well,
just wanted you to all get the information initially, and then I'll be in touch with you all. So I'll get
Okay.
on his case.
Okay. That sounds good. Uh, So is our speaker on yet?
I'm not sure. And Wesley will be joining us. He
Excellent.
he teaches class until like 6 or something, and by the time he gets home,
Right.
teaches till 6:30.
Oh, whoa.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and then it takes him about 30 minutes to get home. So he said he'll be joining us. He might be a little bit late.
Okay, good.
But we'll stall until then. We got a few announcements to make and some things to get through.
Right, thank you for that membership announcement. I know we kind of skipped it at our past meeting, but yeah, we got to get going on that.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's
Hi,
it.
Vic.
Hey, Vic,
He's still muted.
is he? Oh, yeah. You know, it's.
Yep, so we have some names I don't recognize yet tonight, so that's good.
Right. Good,
Some
good.
of Wesley's students or something.
There's Vic.
Hi, Vic.
It'll be nice. We got some new people joining us tonight.
Right.
Yeah.
Welcome, welcome.
Hot topic.
Yes, yeah, it should be
Certainly
interesting.
is, given the results.
Right.
I know.
Yeah, it's very disappointing, even though he did win.
Did he?
Well,
he
he
didn't win the-
won, but he didn't
One
win
election.
by enough. So now they have to do a runoff.
Right, with the other parties. And
Yeah,
maybe they'll come over to, let's hope they come to Lulu.
well,
No, it was strange to read the announcements in the papers. Sometimes they show him as losing, but actually he won. But he didn't win by the amount they thought he would win.
exactly. Yeah. He only won by 5%. And I think when I read, and I, could be remembering it wrong, but that he would have had to win by almost twice that to stave off the runoff. So he's gonna be running off with Bolsonaro.
Not only that 5%, or I haven't looked at what the percentage is, but he was expected by the polls to win by a lot more.
Right, exactly. So Who knows?
Oh, Marilyn is with us. Good. Hi, Marilyn. She's coming.
Good, good.
Yes.
We'll see if she gets in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I didn't realize Marilyn was sick until reading her thing today. Shit,
Everybody, make sure you get your shingles vaccine.
I already
Please.
got mine, because I had it
Please.
once. That was enough. Yeah, I got mine a couple of years ago, Kathy, so
Oh, hi,
that's definitely,
Rich Myers. Good evening.
yes. Hey, Rich.
Good.
And I'm sure Beth is.
Bernice.
Hi.
Hey, Richard.
in.
Hi, everybody.
How are
Hi,
you?
Richard. Hi.
It's fine, thanks.
Hi.
Well, we've still got a couple minutes before 7, and we usually give people a few minutes to join in.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of our new people that are joining us would like to unmute themselves and say hello and introduce themselves and tell us
But
who you are a little bit. We welcome you to our meeting tonight. We hope it'll be an interesting one. Teresa?
Hi, Teresa.
Hey, nice to meet you guys. I'm Teresa
evening.
Gutierrez. I'm part of Professor Mariah's Spanish 314 class.
Oh,
Very
okay.
good. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you.
Super.
Welcome. He keeps talking about his fantastic students, so it's nice to finally meet you face to face.
Right.
Do you get extra credit for coming to this?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Gail Mott is here. Good.
Can we have extra credit too?
Hi, Gail. Good evening.
Hi everyone, my name is Noi Firewood. I also in Professor Mariah's class with Teresa.
Welcome.
Nice
Nice to
meeting
meet
when-
you.
Thank you, you
Sure,
too.
Gusto.
And I'm not seeing your face that well, but no,
Noe Stevens,
is it no?
there he is.
N-O-I, no, N-O, yes.
Hello.
Finewood. Can you introduce yourself?
You just did, and there's Noe. Hi, how are you?
How's it
Hi,
going?
You
Okay,
know, welcome.
there's No and Noi.
Oh,
We're in the
Anna's
same
with us. Good
class.
evening, Anna.
Good. And there's Anna, our guest speaker for this evening. Welcome, Anna.
Good evening. Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello.
hi, Anna.
Hi.
How are you?
Terry is with us. Great.
I'm well. Thank you for the invitation. I'm so glad to be here with you tonight. Thank you very much.
We're
Yes,
looking
we're-
forward to it.
We are, especially since that election. Perfect timing.
Thanks to Wes. He did a great job in hooking us up.
He did.
Yeah, I was just saying that Wes teaches class, I think, till 6:30. And he expected to be here around 7 or 7:05. So we're just we've still got people joining us, so we'll keep admitting people as they come in. And in a few minutes, I'll just give the few announcements I have, and we'll see if anybody else has announcements to make tonight as well. Hi, Gail Matt.
Hello,
Hey.
Tom.
How are you?
Hi, Gail. Good evening.
Hello, hello, and it's good to see
Hello.
so many people here.
Yeah, it's good. Getting more.
I'm curious. No, what is your background? What's behind you?
Oh, this is the Rainbow Mountain in Rainbow Mountains in Peru.
Oh,
Wow.
Oh, so it's a photo of some sort?
Yeah, it's a photo I took.
Okay.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
I was going to say he's coming out live from a trek.
Yeah, that's great. Where in Peru?
That's a good question, actually. Somewhere in the mountains. I don't know. We just kind of got on a bus one day and went to it, so I couldn't tell you exactly where it is.
Okay. like near Quito or?
Quito's in Ecuador, but I think it's
Oh,
near.
I
It
got
was.
the wrong country. Oh my God, I can't
It's okay.
believe I did that. I have COVID and it's turned my brain to marshmallow, so I won't ask any more dumb questions.
No, it's all right.
So I
It's
don't
somewhere
have an
near
excuse.
Cusco.
Cusco, that's what I was thinking.
Yep, Cusco it is.
Give everybody a few more minutes. I see Arnie and Margaret are online, so they're going to be not visible to us, but with us in spirit, watching us.
Good.
Well, it's almost 5 after. I'm going to just give you a few brief announcements that I have, and then if anybody else has anything, please join us. First of all, Terry's here, so I was going to announce Graham Russell being at in Buffalo on October 24th. You want to introduce that, Terry?
Okay, so I just got the email today from Graham that he will have dinner with us at 5 o'clock, and we've picked out a restaurant. So if anybody is interested in that, they could contact me. So Monday, October 24th, he'll be speaking from 7 to 9 at Canisius College in Buffalo, which is on Main Street in Buffalo. And it's a nice big room with a very high ceiling, so it's good for good air quality. And there'll be copies of his book available for purchase through a bookstore, Burning Books in Buffalo. And his topic, of course, is his new book, which collects testimonies of Guatemalans on the ground and how they have suffered from the Canadian mining companies, and also, I'm sure, the US mining companies. So it's a kind of eye-opener about how investment money goes to a bad purpose through these gigantic mining companies.
Yeah, Graham Russell is human rights advocate. He's the co-founder of Rights Action, and has been very active in human rights in Guatemala and Honduras in particular, but other places in Central America as well. Quite an interesting guy. If you've never met Graham, really, if you can get there. Will it be a hybrid meeting, Terry, or is it just in person?
We've decided to try them in person this year to get people to actually come together for the meetings. So
okay.
Also, I'm not as technologically capable as you guys are.
Well, that's not saying a lot, Terry. So, so if you can make it October 24th in Buffalo to meet Graham and hear him talk about testimonial, you'd be more than welcome to be there. So on June 23rd of 2023 is going to be our annual rice and beans dinner. This year, the venue will be different. We're going to hold it outdoors at the Roundhouse Lodge in Genesee Valley Park over by the University of Rochester. And we're going to be honoring Dan Kowalczyk, who's written a lot about Nicaragua and other places. So Dan's been waiting 3 years for this award, so it'll be nice to be able to give it to him. And the other thing that'll be different this year is Rockland will be celebrating their 50th anniversary. And so we hope to have some special events to commemorate that occasion. It's quite a mark to make 50 years as one of these solidarity organization with Latin America. So, you know, there'll be more about that coming up. It'll be in our newsletter, our next issue. And so keep an eye out for that and go to our website at rockland.org. And you can not only find out about details on that, but also listen to some of our past speakers and other events that we have planned. So mark June 23rd down for the next rice and beans dinner. The other thing is we want to let you know that Kathy Goforth has found a Cuban American artist for our next meeting next month on November 2nd. Jason Barber. Kathy, did you want to say a few more words about it?
Right. Jason is a teacher in the city school district. He is a teacher. He is an artist and very much involved in the Latino community here in Rochester. So what we're going to be doing with Jason is we're going to be taking a tour through Rochester and taking a look at the murals that we have here. And so we've got some significant pieces of wall art that he's going to give us a historical background and the connection to the community. And we just thought this would be something a little different rather than the heavy politics. And so just showcase what's going on here in Rochester.
Yeah, and I think the murals are going to be all by Latino or Latinx artists. Is that right?
Correct.
Great.
And he's going to show a video, and then I think he's also going to show some of his photography, and then also his outreach into the community for educating children. That certainly is one of his goals.
Great. That will be November, and oh, here comes Wesley. He's joining us. And the other thing that happens in November is that's typically when we begin our membership drive. And so please, if you get the letter in the mail or an email, please don't hesitate to join us. We haven't had our Rice and Beans fundraiser, which is where most of our funds come to help support the programs that we do all year round and the advocacy work we do. And so we're running a little bit low on funds. So your memberships are always appreciated, no matter when you join or how much you can join us with. It's just good to have your names on our email list and everything. And so that will be coming. And does anyone else have any other? Oh, yes, Elaine?
Hey there. I just want to quickly mention that the Witness Palestine Film Festival begins the 22nd of October with a film on the 22nd. That's a Saturday, the 23rd Sunday, and then the 29th, the following Saturday, and the 30th, that Sunday, 3 o'clock, all of them 3 o'clock. So check out our website because it's just filled with good information. And yeah.
Your website, Elaine?
Yeah.
RW4P. Right?
Thank you, Dick. Yes, rw4p.org, I think. Yeah.
Thank you.
RW,
But there's
number
also
4.
a Witness Palestine Film Festival website. And I think if you just Google that, it'll come up. I'm sorry. I'm terrible when it comes to remembering websites.
I think
That's okay. That's all right. We got it. Thank you.
the schedule is also in the city news for this month, isn't it, Elaine? I think
It is. It is.
Good.
Yes.
We'll get that.
The city news website too, and you'll find the same information.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can always send the flyer to you if you would like.
We can get it. We can get the information. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you.
If there aren't any other announcements at this time, if you're not the speaker, if you would unmute yourself and, mute yourself at this point, so we don't get a lot of background noise. And I'm going to ask Wesley to introduce our guest speaker. And oh, by the way, I'm Tom Ward. I'm the convener for the RACLA. So it's not important, but I guess it's kind of a formality to let you know who you're talking to. So go ahead, Wesley, if you don't mind. Do you want to introduce Anna to us?
Yes. So hello, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. We might have some students joining us as well who are interested and can certainly benefit from what we are going to hear with my colleague, Ana Cortez. So Ana is a PhD candidate in political science at the the prestigious University of São Paulo, USP in Brazil. Her research focuses on the interactions between evangelical organizations and the state in creating public policies. Ana Cortez holds a master's degree in Human Rights and Citizenship and a bachelor's degree in International Relations and Social Sciences. She is also a researcher for the Center for Metropolitan Studies and has extensive experience in designing and managing social and advocacy projects. And I'd like to thank Anna for accepting the invitation to join us. And we couldn't have a better talk in this moment after the first round of the presidential elections held in Brazil this past Sunday. And you're probably aware of everything that is going on. We're going to a runoff with the two expected contenders, far right, Bolsonaro, and the ex-president of the Workers' Party, Lula. And that is all I have to say. Now, the word is yours, Anna. Thank you once again for accepting to give us some more insight into the political sphere or this political moment in Brazil and its consequence, not only to Brazil, but to Latin America as well. Thank you.
So good evening for everyone. Thank you, Wesley, and everyone. I'm really glad to be here. I think it's the first time I'm doing a speech like this for an international audience. So if you do not understand anything that I say, please just raise your hand. And Wesley, maybe you can help me if I have any problem with the language, but I don't think you have problems. So I have a presentation. I'm going to share my screen here. Let me see if I can. I think I need permission of the host to share my screen. Is it possible to give the permission? No. Yes. Okay. So, as Wesley said, I am a candidate, a PhD candidate in the political science department at the University of São Paulo. I studied the presence of religious groups and organizations, especially evangelicals in public policies. And I also have worked in several human rights organizations in Brazil. So I know that you are interested in human rights as well. So I think it's another connection that we have here. In this presentation, I will talk about the interplay between religion and politics in Brazil, especially about the role played by evangelical groups in the public sphere. So here I have an index of my presentation. So first I'd like to show you a little bit where is Brazil in the Latin American context regarding the evangelical groups. The second point is about the growth of evangelical groups in Brazil and why has the number of these churches increased in the last 40 years in the country. I also prepared some slides about who are the evangelicals in Brazil and their profile, and also the growth of the evangelical presence in the public space, especially in politics, and why they or the majority of them are supporting the current president, Jair Bolsonaro. So before starting, it's important to highlight, I'd like to do two disclaimers first. One is that it's important to highlight that evangelical groups in Brazil are not homogeneous. So we have in the country several churches and denominations, as you have in US as well, but it's important to say that these groups play different roles in the public sphere and also in politics. The second thing that I would like to clarify is about who are considered considered evangelicals in Brazil. So in Brazil, we call evangelicals a group composed of historical Protestants, which are people adapted to church that were born during the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century. So these churches are Presbyterian, Lutheran, Baptist, Methodist Church, for example. And we also have other group formed by Pentecostal and New Pentecostal Church. So during my presentation, I will explain the main differences and especially the main differences between Pentecostal and New Pentecostal churches and their role in politics. So here I brought some I brought some data about evangelicals in Latin America just to show you where Brazil is. So this data is not updated. It's from 2014. We don't have an updated data for these countries, but here you can see that Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Honduras have a high number of evangelicals. So they are more than 40% of their population is evangelical. And as this data is not updated.
Anna, can I interrupt just 1 second? Are you seeing in your screen the next slide? Because we are still on the slide of the index.
Oh, yes, I'm seeing the next slide.
Okay, because we are.
If I change, are you seeing?
I think what you will have to do is you probably have to minimize the PowerPoint screen because you probably have 2 windows open on your computer. There we go. Now we see it.
Okay.
This is the screen we are seeing.
Okay. Just a second.
Mm-hmm.
You see the first slide? The
No,
index?
for some reason, yeah,
No?
I see you clicked on start presentation, but for some reason it's not the screen. You would
It's
have
not
to
working.
stop. You would have to stop sharing and start sharing again with the window where the PowerPoint presentation is open, not the PowerPoint app itself. Does that make sense?
Yes, just a second. I try to fix it here. Let me see. I'm not very used with Zoom.
Okay.
Let me see.
Even if you're not able to switch, at least you should know that what we are seeing is the PowerPoint.
Okay.
Not the presentation itself, but the PowerPoint app. Oh.
Now maybe.
Now, yes. Now we see it. Now it's much better. Thank you.
Sorry.
That is totally fine.
Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
for saying.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have these countries, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, that they have more than 40% of the evangelical population. So this data is from 2014. So we expected this number is even higher in these countries. So about Brazil, about evangelicals in Brazil and the growth of evangelical groups in Brazil. In Brazil, we have 31% of its population being evangelical. So we are here now. It means something about 66 million people who declare being evangelical. Despite Brazil being behind countries like Honduras and Guatemala in Latin America, the evangelical phenomenon in Brazil is continental due to its size and also due to the presence of this group in the political arena. So as we can see in this graph, evangelicals represented 6.6% of the Brazilian population in 1880, and in 2020, it represented 31.8% of the Brazilian population. So it was a growth of almost 400% in 40 years. And if you see this line at the same time, in the last 40 years, the number of Brazilian Catholics has been falling. So in 1908, they were almost 90% of Brazilian population, and today it represents a lot. It represents around 50% of the Brazilian population. So it's important to say that the greatest difference between evangelicals and Catholics, which matters for their relevance in public politics and the public sphere, is that evangelicals are more active in how they practice their religion than Catholics are. So evangelical groups, they used to be in the church at least once a week, while most people who declare to be Catholic do not they do not go to the church often. So the result of this is that for evangelical groups, religion matters more in all spheres of their lives, including in politics, than for Catholic groups. So just to give you an example, recently I carried out a research that showed a correlation between the frequency of evangelical people in the church and their position on human rights. So the more an evangelical goes to a church, to an evangelical church, the more conservative he or she is on human rights issues. And so mine and other research in Brazil are showing that religious values, such as the protection of the family, and the family as traditional family, as a heteronormative family, I mean, and positions against their abortion, just to give some examples, matter more to evangelical groups than to other groups in the society. So that's why left-wing parties have more difficult reaching the votes of this population than other parts of the society. So I have a colleague in my department. He is now based in Switzerland, actually, and he is studying how evangelical groups vote in Brazil, and he's publishing a lot in English about this. So his name is Vitor Araújo. If you are interested to know more about this, you can search his name. So just returning to the graph here, we see that estimates for the religious futures in Brazil point to a reversal of its religious base in 2030, that when it is estimated that evangelicals will become the majority, surpassing the number of Catholics. And it's very important because if it happens, and if me and Vitor Araújo and other researchers are right, religious values and morality are going to reach even more space in Brazilian politics, and left-wing parties will have more and more difficult to reach this population. Why has the number of evangelical churches increased in Brazil in the last 40 years? So I brought here an overview about the growth of evangelical movement in Brazil. And what I can say is that evangelical churches arrived in Brazil in the 19th century. These churches were called historical Protestants. So here we have Baptist Church, Methodist, Lutheran Church, Presbyterian Church, for example. And the followers of these churches were mainly people from the elite classes. And at the beginning of the 20th century, Pentecostal churches began to arrive in Brazil. These churches are responsible for the evangelical growth in the country. So an author called Paul Freston, he agreed there were 3 waves of expansion of Pentecostal churches in Brazil. And Paul Freston, he has a vast bibliography in English because he is English actually, but he studied Brazilian evangelical movement for several years. So if you are interested, you can also look at Paul Freston. So I'm going to give you an idea about these 3 waves that Paul Freston was talking. So the first Pentecostal wave took place in 1910 to 1950 with the foundation of 2 churches. Congregação Cristã do Brasil, it's something like Brazilian Christian Congregation, and Assembleia de Deus. Today, Assembleia de Deus is the biggest church in Brazil. So the main characteristic of this church and this wave were a strong anti-Catholicism and an ascetic position on the external world. So to this church, everything that was not connected with the church or with the kingdom of God was rejected. For example, the followers of this church could not be involved in politics because it was a mundane thing. And it's also important to say that the number of evangelicals in Brazil during this time was around 3%. So we have few people being evangelical in this time. So it's the first wave. Let's go to the second wave. So the second wave took place in Brazil between 1950 and 1970. This wave was characterized by the propagation of evangelical religion, especially on the radio. So differently of the first, from the first wave, here the church should use the tools available in the world, like the radio, to spread God's word. So here it was important being the word, but be present in their words to spread God's word. So in this period, church started to be a little bit more involved in church. The main churches of this movement were Quadrangular, this church, and Igreja o Brasil para Cristo, Brazil for Christ, and Igreja Deus é Amor, God is Love. The number of evangelicals in Brazil during this wave was something around 5%. So until the 70s, the 80s, the number of Brazilian being evangelical were so low. Now we are going to the third wave, which is referred as New Pentecostalism. So this New Pentecostalism wave took place in the 80s and especially in the 90s. So it's important to say that this is the most important movement for the growth of evangelicals in Brazil, and also for understanding the role of these groups in Brazilian politics. This wave was marked off by the foundation of churches that grew rapidly, such as Universal do Reino de Deus, this one, Internacional da Graça de Deus, Sara Nossa Terra, and Renascer em Cristo. I will highlight 3 characteristics of this wave because they are important to understand the political position of this church. These 3 characteristics that I'm going to highlight now, I will highlight them because they these 3 characteristics differentiate the new Pentecostalism of the Pentecostalism. So it differentiates the 3rd wave to the 1st and 2nd wave. So the first characteristic of this new Pentecostalism that I would like to highlight is the prosperity theology. So according to this theology, wealth is a sign of God's blessing. So if you work and become rich, it's a sign that God is blessing you. Sorry. So this theology is based on individual work and meritocracy. So this church, especially Universal, focuses on entrepreneurship. If you invest your time in good ideas and hard work, it means that God will bless you, and you are going to progress in your in financially speaking. So there is a consonance here with the neoliberal ideology that also had space in Brazil, especially in the 80s and in the 90s. So while neoliberalism was spreading in Brazil, this theology was also spreading in the country. So the second characteristic that I would like to highlight is about the spiritual war. This is the idea of a constant spiritual battle between God and devil. So according to this theology, people who are against the church in some way are instruments of evil, and these people are considered enemies. So if a politician is in the opposite side of another politician, for example, another politician who is supported by this church, these politicians not just considered a political enemy, but an enemy sent by the devil, doing things, evil things, and this person must to be combated. So the 3rd characteristic is about the dominion theology. According to this, the evangelical church and their followers must not only be in this world, waiting for life in heaven, but they must influence all areas of society according to God's word. So politics is an important space of influence that must be occupied by this church in this new theology. So according to this new theology, church should be in all spaces of the society, and they should dispute this space with other groups who were against God's word. Just to go back to this graph, we can see here this new Pentecostal wave was responsible here since the 1990s. We can see that this new Pentecostal wave, the 3rd wave, was responsible for the growth of evangelical groups in Brazil. This growth happened especially in small towns and urban centers. So hundreds of churches were inaugurated in these years on the outskirts of Brazilian cities, close to favelas, where Catholic Church were not present. So it's important to understand this third wave because here we will find the main characteristics of Brazilian evangelical church nowadays. And these characteristics, as I mentioned, are fundamental for understanding the role of this group in politics. So here I brought some information about the denominations, just to give you an idea about the size of Pentecostal groups in Brazil. So in Brazil, around 60% of evangelicals Brazilians are Pentecostals, while 18.5% are historical evangelical. So are people from Baptist, Presbyterian, and other churches from the Reformation. So here I brought some pictures because these are the two main Pentecostal churches in Brazil. Here we have the God Assembly and the headquarters of the church. And here we have Jair Bolsonaro with Silas Malafaia, which is a leader of this church, and he is a supporter of Jair Bolsonaro in the church, but especially in the social media. He has million followers in social media, and every day he's talking about the government. He went with Bolsonaro to the English Queen's funeral, for example. So he's very influential inside the government. And here we have Universal Church. Here is the huge headquarters of Universal Church in São Paulo. And here is Edir Macedo, who is baptizing Jair Bolsonaro, just to give you an idea about the support of these big churches to Jair Bolsonaro. Now I brought some slides just to show you who are the evangelicals in Brazil and the profile of this population. So when we are talking about evangelicals in Brazil, we are talking mainly about women. So 58% of evangelicals in Brazil are women. Around 70% of them attend Pentecostal and New Pentecostal churches. Most of these women are between 30 and 39 years old, so they are young women, mothers, and most of them are the heads of their families. They are also in the age group of Michele Bolsonaro, who is the president's wife, and the president has used his wife to connect with this audience. Michele Bolsonaro, she is evangelical. For example, every week she goes to the government's headquarters just to pray, and she goes there with other pastors, and she's always in social media showing that she's praying for government. And so she talks a lot with this audience, and especially with women. About income, most of Brazilian evangelicals, almost 50% of them earn until 2 minimum wages per month. Just to give you an idea, this is about 500 a month. So we are talking here about a poor population. Regarding race, the vast majority of this population, almost 60%, is composed of Black people. And regarding the level of education, most evangelicals in Brazil, 84%, do not have a superior education. So 35% of them attended just primary school. So I brought this just to give you the idea that when we are talking about evangelicals in Brazil, we are talking especially about women, Pentecostal and New Pentecostal, Black people, poor people with low education. So this is the basis of Pentecostalism in Brazil. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about the growth of the evangelical presence in the public sphere. So driven by this idea that it was necessary to be active in the world's issues and influence the direction of society, the presence of evangelicals in the Brazilian public space started to grow, as I mentioned, in the 80s and also in the 90s. And this growth happened in especially in three arenas. So I brought these three arenas here. The first one is the cultural arena, with the production of public mega events and investment in communication. The second arena is the political arena, and the third arena is the implementation of social politics through churches and civil society organizations linked to churches. So regarding culture and communication arena, I brought the example here of the March for Jesus. So since 1993, the evangelicals in Brazil do an annual event, which is called March for Jesus. And this event happens in several cities in the country, especially in the most important capitals, and brings together thousands of evangelical in the streets. Not thousands, millions of evangelicals in the streets. So these events, they include sermons, praises, worship, and shows of gospel famous artists. So a lot of young people go to this event. Just to give you an idea of the size of this event, in 2005, the March for Jesus in São Paulo had an audience of 3 million people. So it's a huge event here. And here I wrote a picture of Jair Bolsonaro, the President Jair Bolsonaro, participating of this March for Jesus. He was the first president being this event in Brazil. So it happened since 1993, but Jair Bolsonaro was the first president to be there and to support these people in this event. And he goes every year and he gives a speech to this audience. The second example in the communication area that I brought here is about Record TV channel. This is one of the biggest TV channel in Brazil. It's an open broadcast. And the owner of this TV is Edir Macedo, the leader of Universal Church, one of the biggest churches in the country. So This TV works mainly for the evangelical audience, and they have a lot of religious TV shows, such as services, moments of Bible reflection, and novels based on the Bible's stories. This is the second most watched TV channel in Brazil, so it's an important channel, and this TV reaches many people. The second arena that I would like to highlight is the political arena. So the involvement of evangelical groups in politics started especially in the 80s, when evangelical representatives were involved with the elaboration of new constitution. Their objective was that their interests could be incorporated into the document, and one of these interests was the defense of the traditional family, for example, composed of a woman, man, and children, and they were also against the legalization of abortion in any situation. So since then, several churches, especially the Pentecostal church, started to organize themselves to elect their representatives in the National Congress. So if you look to this graph, you will see that from the 80s, the number of evangelicals elected to the parliament has grown since then. And if we add here the last election in last Sunday, this number is even higher. So in 2005, leaders of the Universal Church, they created a party. This party is currently named Republicans. Today, this party is the political arm of the Universal Church and the conservadorism in the National Congress. So it's the way how they bring their interest to the Congress. And finally, in 2003, evangelical leaders at the National Congress, they created the Evangelical Parliamentary Front to defend the interests of this group. So today, the Evangelical Parliamentary Front is composed of 181 deputies and 8 senators. This represents around 32% of the National Congress. So they are 1/3. This parliamentary front is 1/3 of the National Congress today. And most of these politicians who are part of this parliamentary front, most of them are aligned with President Jair Bolsonaro. So before I talk about the alignment between the majority of evangelical groups in Brazil and Jair Bolsonaro, I'd like to talk a little bit about Jair Bolsonaro. So you may know that Jair Bolsonaro, he is a former soldier in the Brazilian military. He was removed from the military career due to acts of indiscipline. And after this, he started a political career. So he was a federal deputy for more than 30 years. When he emerged as a candidate for the presidency, he appeared to many people as an alternative in a moment that Brazilian politics was in crisis, after several cases of corruption involving the federal government and especially the Labour Party governments. So he was elected in 2018, saying he was not a politician, despite having been a federal deputy for 30 years. He also used he uses a tactic very close to Trump. You will see. He also used an anti-corruption discourse. So despite the existence of several corruption charges against him and his family, he used this discourse that he was not corrupt. He also was based on a conservative discourse. So he says he is against gay marriage and abortion, that he also claims to be a Christian man. In 2018, he was baptized in Jordan River. And and the motto of his campaign was Brazil above all and God above everyone. This in 2018. He still uses this, but now the most important motto of his campaign is God, family, and fatherland. It's the same motto of the fascist government, the Italian fascist government of Mussolini. So in the 2018 elections, 70% of the evangelicals chose Bolsonaro as their candidate. Now in 2022, I don't have yet the numbers of the first election that we had on Sunday, but the research show that 50% of evangelical voters are with Bolsonaro. With the results of the election, we believe that this number is even higher. But it's important to say that he lost support of this group. Before he had 70%, and now he has around 50%, and he lost support mainly from women, especially Black and poor women, because these women suffered a lot with the pandemic, with his bad administration in the pandemic. They lost their jobs, lost people during the pandemic, so they were they suffered a lot with this. So despite having the support of evangelicals, Bolsonaro is not an evangelical. It's important to say as well. He is Catholic. However, he was baptized in Israel, as I mentioned before, by an evangelical pastor. So many people see him as an evangelical or a person who respects the evangelicals. So he is married with an evangelical woman. I think he has 4 sons. 2 of them are evangelical. So he is Catholic, but he is very close of evangelical people. And why do evangelicals vote for Bolsonaro if he's not an evangelical? So as I mentioned before, he defends the heteronormative traditional family. And there is a feeling among Brazilian evangelicals that the left-wing parties are going to end the traditional family, that these parties work to end the traditional family. So he created the family ministry in Brazil. It's called Human Rights and Women, Human Rights and Family Ministry, but it's very focused on policies which protect the family as an institution, and he chose Damaris Alves to be his the ministry of the minister of this ministry. She is a pastor, an evangelical pastor, and here is a picture of her saying that boys should wear blue clothes while girls should wear pink clothes. And Sunday, Damaris was elected as a senator in Brazil. So the second point, he is against abortion. He says he defends life since its conception. So as I mentioned before, it was a demand and it is a demand of this group. They think that left-wing parties are going to legalize the abortion in all situations in Brazil, and the women are going to start to abort. So the third point is that Bolsonaro defends that Brazil is a Christian country. In 2018, and also in his campaign this year, he and his followers spread a fake news saying that the Labour Party wanted to close evangelical churches in Brazil. So like my grandmother, she's an evangelical, and she is always saying that the Labour Party and Lula, who is the leader of Labour Party and the most important oppositor of Bolsonaro, if he reaches the government, he's going to close churches. So Bolsonaro, he creates the idea that he is a soldier against evil. And in this case, the evil is communism, the Working Party, and his leader, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, Lula. So he brings this idea of a spiritual battle, that we are in a spiritual battle, and he is sent by God to be a soldier in this battle. So as I explained it before, it's an important idea for Pentecostal groups, and this idea is very strong among them, and now it's very strong in the elections here. So just to finish, I would like to highlight the third arena regarding social actions. So many churches in Brazil are social organizations or are linked to them in order to provide social services. As I mentioned before, many of these churches are based on the outskirts of the cities where public services do not reach people for several reasons, where the state's not there to fill the necessities of these people. So it's common seeing churches offering services to children, homeless people, drug users. I've been studied a social policy carried out by evangelical groups to care about drug users. So these social actions are very important to this community. So many times evangelical churches provide the living conditions for the poorest population. The church networks become an important source of emotional and financial support for these people. Many people get a job through the church network, for example. So the church becomes a safe place for people. So these people trust in the church, the church network and their leaders, because church is really important to their survival. The state's not there to protect them, but the church is. And these religious leaders influence in how these people vote. So I'm not saying that these people are silly and they are just following the religious leaders, but they follow the church because the church is really important in their lives, because when they need, churches are there. So this is important to understand. It's not just because these people don't know what they are doing, or they don't know how to vote, but they think that the church is there for them, not the state. So they vote with church leaders. So just before finishing, the last thing I'd like to highlight here is saying that there are also evangelical groups who are standing against Bolsonaro and his conservative view regarding Christianism in Brazil. So there are several left-wing groups, evangelical groups in the country. They are minority, but they are playing an interesting role in the political arena, also trying to elect their representatives. For example, there is a pastor in Rio de Janeiro who was elected on Sunday as federal deputy, and he is a left-wing pastor who are standing against Bolsonaro. So it's very important to have him there in the Congress saying, I am evangelical, I am a pastor, and I don't agree with Bolsonaro and his view of the Christianism. So in the next years, I think it will be also important to analyze these left-wing movements inside the evangelical population. So just to finish, afterwards I can share this presentation with Wesley, but here I brought some people that I talked about. Vitor Araújo, the researcher that I talked about. Here there is his website, so you can find papers there. Paul Freston, he has a lot of papers regarding evangelicals in Brazil. And here is a podcast with James Green. James Green is a professor in Brown University. Actually, I'm going to States next year. I'm going to live in the States to study in the Brown University for a year as a visiting researcher there. And James Green is going to be my supervisor. And he is here in Brazil, and in this podcast, he is telling about the election as someone who is infiltrated in Brazil and Brazilian politics. And here I brought the book of Amy Erica Smith, who is a professor. I think she is in the Pennsylvania University. And she has this book called Religion and Brazilian Democracy, Mobilizing the People of God, and she's studying evangelical people in Brazil. And this is a very interesting book about this issue. So thank you very much. As I said, I'm very glad to be here. I'm very glad to debate with you, and I'm open for the discussion.
Okay, wow, that's an excellent presentation, Anna. Thank you so much. And usually at this time now, what we do is we will open it for questions. So if you have a question, I see Noe Stevens. If you want to unmute yourself, go ahead and ask your question.
Oh no, I was clapping.
Oh, I took off my glasses. I took
Very
off my
interesting.
glasses.
Very, very informative. Thank you, Anna. It was excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Questions? There must be some. Yes, Wesley, unmute yourself.
So Anna, as you know, we are a group and we are interested, of course, in the entirety of Latin America. So we know that the evangelical phenomena is growing across Latin America. But do you see this interplay of religion and politics happening at least as in some similar ways to the Brazilian arena? Do you see it happening elsewhere in Latin America? Can we expect more Bolsonaros to come to the scene in other countries of the region?
Can I respond now, or you are going to get more? Okay. Unfortunately, Wesley, I have to say yes. We have, as I mentioned, we have very close movements in Nicaragua, Honduras, and other countries. And evangelicals are growing in Argentina, for example, but not, it's not like Brazil, but it can be Brazil in the future. Let's see what's going to happen with Argentina. So I think we have Brazil. It's important to look at Brazil because it's a big democracy and it's becoming evangelical very fast. As I was talking with a colleague this week, differently of European situation, the countries in Europe that changed their religion in centuries, and they had wars to change from Catholicism to Protestantism. We did this in Brazil just in 40 years. 50 years. So this change is very, very quickly in Brazil. It's happening very fast. So it's new. I think, I don't know the US context very well. I have to study more to compare, but some researchers are doing compare about US and Brazil, because US is a huge democracy and is US is Protestant, and you have a growth of evangelical groups in evangelical and mainly the Pentecostal groups in US. But I think it's a bit differently because in Brazil we have a specific Pentecostalism. People here in Brazil are much more conservative than in the US, the Pentecostal groups in the US. So we have some countries in Latin America that close things are happening, but they don't have the same size of Brazil. The important to look at the Brazilian case is that we are a huge country and we are changing very, very fast. So I think the world should be looking here, and because it will be important to know what's going to happen with left-wing parties, what's going to happen with the place of traditional or conservative values in the society in Latin America and in the world.
Other questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
Where does Lula's support come from?
Good question, Gail. Lula supported come from poor people and mainly from the northeast of the country. And this is the paradox, because evangelicals are poor. The most people, as I mentioned, they are women, they are poor, and they are low educated. So, and Lula takes the support of these people in the whole country, but not from the evangelical people. So poor evangelicals tend to vote, not all of them, of course, as I mentioned, the support of Bolsonaro lower, I forgot the word, decreased in this election, but he still have the support of poor evangelical groups. But Lula has more support than him in other groups. We have the Catholic, for example, Catholics, which are the majority of the country. 50% of Brazil are Catholic, and we have people without religion. So these people are supporting Lula, but mainly northeast of the country and poor people.
Thank you. Thank you.
And what I don't understand is I've seen it, in Guatemala with Rios Montt when he was part of the genocide of the Mayans. And Bolsonaro has allowed the loggers to tear the Amazon apart without concern for the indigenous people there. And if you read the Bible, or even have a basic understanding of the Bible, and Rios Montt was an evangelical, and of course he hid behind that to kill all these people. But you're supposed to love your neighbor, love your enemy, take care of the earth, take care of the animals of the earth, and not abuse these things. And so I have a hard time trying to find out what is the connection, or where is the disconnection between these religions, and to see what these people that they support are actually doing to this world and to the people that live in it. To me, it's not Christian at all, really. When you see like Donald Trump, blatant racist, corrupt, lies, Bolsonaro is the same guy. I don't understand why they support this.
Yeah, I think we are going through what we did. You went through with Trump, when I remember in 2016 when I was living in Brasilia and I saw Trump being elected, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? What's going on in US, and what is going to happen in Brazil? Because that time we are going through the impeachment of the Labor Party president in Brazil, when the whole crisis started. It was a coup to the democracy. Now it's recognized by several people here in Brazil. So I don't have response for your question, because I also do not understand as a person. I understand as a researcher, because I'm seeing they are saying that they are afraid that Lula is going to close the churches, and he is for abortion, and the left-wing party is going to, it's a communism. This afraid of communism here in Brazil, it's so strong. People has afraid, and it's crazy because we had this government before. Lula was the president for 80 years, and he was the most approved president in the country. His
approval rate. Yep. His approval rate.
His approval rate was very, very high in his second term. Then he was in jail, and things changed here. But it's crazy. People lived in his government, and people are saying that Brazil will become the Venezuela. People say that. It's this fear, because that's why I brought to you this idea of the dominion theology and spiritual battle, because it's important to understand how these people think. They think it's a spiritual battle and the communism is coming. It's like we are in the 60s, in the 70s. We are back to the Cold War. It's crazy. It's
Right.
crazy.
So the bottom line is that they use fear really to get people to do what they want them to do, is basically it.
Anna, I have a question, actually sort of two parts. As you probably know, in the United States, the Catholic Church has joined the evangelical campaign against abortion. And that's on the level of the bishops, not necessarily individual Catholics. But in Brazil, has the Catholic Church joined with evangelicals to oppose abortion? And that's number one. And number two, has the Catholic Church done anything to try to win back evangelicals back to the Catholic Church?
For the first question, it's a good question because Catholic Church in Brazil and worldwide, it's against abortion, and Catholic Church started the campaign against abortion. So it was an issue of Catholic Church in Brazil and worldwide. And it's crazy because like evangelical movements in Brazil, they were most of them the majority against abortion, but the Universal Church, which is one of the main churches in Brazil, they were in favor of abortion. And Edir Macedo, he has a book, and he writes in this book that he was for abortion because it could be a good method of birth control, and poor people had to have a better method of birth control. So Edir Macedo was for abortion, and this was not an issue of evangelical church. It started to be recently, and then Catholic Church and evangelical church, they started to be together in this issue in Brazil. But as evangelical church, they are a lot. They are in the social. They are very strong in social media. They have a lot of followers. They started to lead this agenda. So now I think evangelicals in Brazil are leading this agenda with the support of Catholics, but here and worldwide, Catholics started to with this agenda. About the second question, if Catholic Church try to win back these evangelical people, it's not a Catholic Church are losing members worldwide. It's not just in Brazil. So I think they are trying to. I think Papa Francisco is one way to try to have another concept of Christianism and talk to people. So I think that is one way. But here in Brazil, there are very conservative Catholics, and Papa Francisco, he cannot reach these people. So I don't know how Catholics, I don't study the Catholic movement, but it would be very interesting to see how Catholic churches are trying to reach these conservative groups. So, for example, one of the candidates in Brazil. The president candidate, one of them, his name is Padre Kelmo. He's a priest, and he's very conservative, he's more conservative than Bolsonaro. And he's a priest, and he says that he's representing Catholic Orthodox Church, and he's against abortion, and he's very conservative, and he was like working with Bolsonaro in his campaign, but he was a candidate. So I don't know very well the Catholic context. I think it's the best answer I can give you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think we got time for one more question. Oh, we got two questions. Okay, let's go with Teresa first.
Hi, first of all, thank you for speaking. It's great to hear from you, but I have a more broad question. I was wondering, like, with the growth of conservative evangelical like political movements in Brazil and other countries in Latin America, do you think that we'll see a resurgence of the pink tide to combat or like in opposition of this growth?
I don't know if I understood the question. Sorry, Teresa. Can you repeat, please? Or whatever?
Yeah. Do you think, like, in response to the growing evangelical movements, political movements, there will be like a resurgence of the more like leftist, like pink tide movements?
I got it now. Yeah. Okay. I got it now. Thank you. Yes, I think this is the way the words go forward. You know, I study human rights. I did my master's in human rights. We were always discussing that these evangelical groups, they started to organize themselves because we went forward with human rights in Brazil and in the world. And I think when you go forward with human rights and you get more rights, conservative people stand to get setbacks, you know. But you are going forward. I think some rights that you got, you cannot lose it anymore. But the opposite side happens as well. So I think now, like, we had Bolsonaro, had Bolsonaro's government, and here in Brazil it was a very difficult time. We had, beside the pandemic, we had a president that didn't believe on science, that didn't get vaccinated, that worked against the vaccine, worked against science, that he cut budget for the health ministry. He's burning Amazonia. It's terrible. We are so tired to be in Brazil, actually. But I think people are organizing themselves. There are left-wing movements growing, and you cannot forget that Lula was in prison last year, and now he maybe is going to be the next president. And Labor Party was the Labor Party here in Brazil lost a lot in the last few years. The party lost several cities, lost several states, several chairs in the parliament, but now they are getting more chairs in this election, and then they got, I think they recovered most cities that they had before, and Lula can be the president again. So you see, we are responding. So I'm very, very tired, and I was really upset with the result of the election on Sunday, but I have hope that we are going to, that Lula is going to take out Bolsonaro to his place because it's really
Good question,
to
good
be
answer.
personal.
Harold, you've got your hand up, and then Beth, you had your hand up earlier. So if you have a question, just raise your hand again. But
It's
we're,
okay.
we're gonna go to Harold first.
That's fine. And I won't ask. Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks, Tom.
all right, Harold?
Yes. Hi, Thomas. Hi, Anna. It is a great pleasure to have been listening at your dissertation. I am a Colombian born and US citizen now, and I am aware of the predicament that not only the countries of Latin America and the situation that we face here politically, economically, all the question that I had to ask you was, have you make an analysis of how the evangelicals intend to cash out once they reach a political foothold in the Brazilian politics? Because they are right now, in my opinion, they are approaching the most vulnerable people, indigent and educated, and they are trying to use them, to gain the foothold in politics, and eventually, they want to have also their place in politics, and with that, comes power and money. So you probably have made an analysis of that. The other thing that I want to mention was what Thomas says about, in the political spectrum, the abortion issue is not only here in the United States, but also in Latin America. He mentioned that why we are being aware of that when they are destroying the rainforest. And according to statistics that I just Googled it, we are burning about 200,000 acres of rainforest are burned every day. That is about 150 acres lost every minute of every day. And in total, we have about 78 million acres that are lost every year. These are facts from an educated rainforest website. So, I mean, as a society that involves Latin America, the United States, and maybe perhaps the rest of the world, where are we heading with this group of people? What are their intentions? I mean, in one side, they are trying to use people to get themselves into politics to eventually control and power. And on the other hand, they don't care about how much of the world is being destroyed by destroying the rainforest, which is going to affect all of us in one way or another. If in Brazil is a massive, as you mentioned, and sometimes people try to bring fear by saying that Brazil will become like Venezuela. Well, the fear will make people flee the places, and the obvious place that they want to go is to North America. And then here we are facing the same problems that people are facing down there, because it's a massive amount of people that are migrating because of upheaval in their countries. Political situation creates unrest. And then as Thomas mentioned, the massacre in Guatemala, where natives were massacred by the by the country's elite. And now you see in the other side, what is happening at the border, where hundreds and thousands of people are trying to come, looking for a better life. So in your analysis, at the end, what is the really motive of the evangelicals?
Okay.
A very, very good question. And I don't know if I'll I can give you a good answer because it's a complex question. But what evangelicals are going to do when they reach the power and their motivation for this? I think the motivation is power. The motivation is being in the power. Like, if you will see, I didn't talk about this, but we can talk about this now, is that evangelical groups were with the Labor Party when the Labor Party was in the government. He supported Lula's government. They supported Lula's government, and they also supported Dilma Rousseff government, the former president who was impeached. And when these big churches, I'm talking about the big church like Universal Church and God's Assembly, they use it to support, because they like to be close to the power, because they have benefits and there are tributes that they don't have to pay. So they gain things if you are close to power. And they were close to power even when the Labor Party was governing Brazil. And but in 2016, when they saw that Dilma Rousseff were going to be impeached, they changed their position and started to support right-wing movements, and they started to be in favor of the impeachment, and now they are with Bolsonaro. So now we have to analyze how these groups are going to position position themselves if Lula wins the election. If they are good, because if they take an opposition position, it will be new in the case of Brazil. So for this reason, I think you have a good question, because it's a new thing that we are going to pass. And like Universal Church and God's Assembly, I think they have an assembly today, and they said to all pastors, if any pastor support Lula, he's going to be removed of the church, things like this. So they are very, very restricted in the support the support of Bolsonaro. So let's see if they are going to change this position after election. I don't know. I'm very curious about this.
Thank you very much for your answer. It was wonderful. Thank you for all the information that you gave us for your dissertation. It was fantastic.
And thank you so much for being here and for giving us such a good insight into what's going on down there in Brazil. Thank you, Wesley. I know Brazil is near and dear to your heart, your homeland. And so thank you very much for arranging to get Anna to speak to us tonight. And thank you too for bringing your students, because it's so nice to see some young people here to learn about Brazil and what's going on. Very nice. Anybody that's interested in being sure that you get notified of our upcoming programs, just go to www.racla.org and just sign up for our email. You don't have to send money. We won't hit you up for donations. I mean, if you want to, that's fine. But really, if you want to just get the email so that you know what our programs are, and get our newsletter, which is really, it's a beautiful newsletter. Grania is our editor, and Marianne is our webmaster. They do a wonderful job putting together some very updated articles about many different countries in Latin America, just to keep our members and our friends advised of what's going on down there. So it was a great evening. Wish we could do this all in person. Maybe soon we will be doing it, at least as a hybrid meeting. We're looking into doing that. But Anna, it's great to be able to talk to you in Brazil, and just everybody, thank you all so much for being here tonight and for attending. Appreciate
you,
it.
Anna.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna. It was
Very much.
excellent. Excellent presentation. Thank you so much. Best wishes.
Thank you, thank you. And next year I'm going to be living in US, so maybe we can meet. I will be living in Providence, but maybe I can go to New York and meet you.
Well,
That's a thought time. That's a thought time.
Providence is a really cool place. I
It
love
is.
Rhode Island. It's a great place to go on vacation too. There's a lot going on in Providence.
Good, good. I've been there for 9 months, so I'm very excited. It's going to be my first time in US, so I'm really excited.
Well, we hope you'll like it.
Yes.
There is a big Brazilian, no, Portuguese population in Rhode Island.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great, great. But I have to improve my English.
So we're
Your
gonna.
English is very, very good. I commend you. Your English is very, very good.
Excellent day.
Yes.
Tremendo.
Tremendo.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
the invitation and for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank you.
you.